In addition to Senator McCain's own record of being anti-regulation, there are also the lobbyists who work for him, who have themselves lobbied for the deregulation of this banking industry and gotten rich off of it. The New York Times, aforementioned, reporting this morning that the McCain campaign manager, Rick Davis, was paid more than $30,000 a month, or $1.8 million over 5 years, to be president of an advocacy group with the deceptive name of the Home Ownership Alliance, which defended the mortgage giants, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, against stricter government regulations, according to current and former officials. What did the mortgage giants buy with that nearly $2 million they paid Davis? In a word, access. Access to Senator McCain, former spokesman for Fannie Mae, telling the Times, quote, the value that he brought to the relationship was the closeness to Senator McCain and the possibility that Senator McCain was going to run for president again. And the latest twist in the crisis, the prospect that our bailout of American firms might extend to foreign banks like, the Swiss outfit, UBS, whose vice chairman, former Senator Phil Gramm, merely wrote the McCain economic plan. Over the weekend, UBS and other foreign banks successfully lobbying to sell their toxic mortgage debt to the U.S. Treasury as well, getting the same treatment as American banks. Yesterday, McCain spokesman Tucker Bounds refusing to rule out that Senator Gramm might still become Treasury Secretary Gramm in a McCain administration. On the stump today, Senator McPopulist decrying the excesses of CEO pay.
My friends, the top executives are asking for $2.5 billion in bonuses after they ran the company into the ground. The senior executives of any firm that's bailed out by the Treasury should not be making more money than the highest paid government official. We should have that criteria.
And what about McCain financial advisor Carly Fiorina, you ask? Well, at least that's what Meredith Vieira asked.
About Wall Street, you said you promised to crack down on CEOs who walked away with huge severance packages. And yet the person that up until recently was your public face really on your economic policies was Carly Fiorina. Mm-hmm. She's the former CEO of Hewlett-Packard. She was fired in 2005, but she left with I think it was a $45 million golden parachute, while 20,000 of her employees were laid off. She is an example of exactly the kind of person you say is at the root of the problem.
I don't think so.
How can you say that?
Because I think she did a good job as CEO in many respects. I don't know the details of her compensation package, but she's one of many advisors that I have.
Like Rick Davis of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and Phil Gramm of UPS. On the campaign trail in Wisconsin, Senator Obama redefining maverick.
After 26 years of being part of this Washington culture, all that he has changed is his slogan for the fall campaign. And the people in charge of that campaign prove that if we elect John McCain, it's not a team of mavericks we'll be sending to the White House, it's a team of lobbyists. We can't afford 4 more years of that kind of politics.
Let's turn now to CNBC's chief Washington correspondent, John Harwood, also, of course, political writer with the New York Times. Good evening, John.
Hey, Keith.
You interviewed Senator McCain over the weekend. When you asked him about the lobbying that Rick Davis had done for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, he said, the quote was, my campaign manager has stopped that, has had nothing to do with it since, and I'll be glad to have his record examined by anybody who wants to look at it. Obviously, somebody did, your colleagues at the Times, and the McCain campaign's response today that the Times is not a journalistic organization by any standard. This goes kind of beyond working the refs, as John Alter just pointed out. This is accusing the refs of fixing the game.
You know, it was pretty over the top, the statements that Steve Schmidt was making, and it's an acceleration of a pattern that we've seen. We saw it in the 2004 campaign. Some of the Bush people were pretty aggressive about blaming the press. It is, as you mentioned to Jonathan, a way to rally the base. It also expresses some frustration. They know they're behind the 8 ball in this economic crisis. They had momentum coming out of their convention. There's some frustration there, and they're trying to get the attention away from some of the things the press wants to talk about and onto different ground and try to redefine a little bit this economic crisis is not something about broad economic policies, but about individual greed and corruption. The problem, of course, is that you've got some of McCain's advisors who are involved in the same activities that he's condemning.
And to that point, Rick Davis, who claims now that he didn't lobby per se for Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac for the nearly $2 million that he got. He merely ran the lobbying organization. Could there be a lot of different kinds of analogies made here as to why that's not really a substantive difference?
I don't think there's a substantive difference. I think you're right about that. And in fairness, McCain said to me, this is these are conglomerates that really reached out and touched everybody in Washington. And there's a lot of truth to that. There's an awful lot of Democrats and Republicans, very prominent people, including Bob Zellick, who is an alternative Treasury Secretary for John McCain, some very prominent advisors, Jim Johnson, who was heading the vice presidential search process for Obama before he was asked to step down. There's so many people who have been on the dole from Fannie Mae that it really has infected a lot of Washington, and that's something that's obviously going to change in this rescue package.
Is this economic crisis meltdown, whichever terminology you prefer, creating a real problem for Senator McCain, and that the day jobs and the former jobs of his campaign associates, Mr. Davis, Senator Graham, Ms. Fiorina, are being scrutinized as perhaps they should be?
Yes, and Keith, it's really bigger than that, though. It's that Barack Obama knows that this crisis helps him make the case that the economic policies of this unpopular incumbent Republican have not worked. So he can afford to be calmer, be more presidential, try to be reassuring. John McCain knows that the wind is right in his face. He's trying to fight through it, shift away from broad economic policies toward individuals, and to try to raise doubts about Barack Obama personally. That's an important part of it.
And what saves that negative momentum for the senator at this point, Senator McCain, that is? Friday's debate being about foreign policy and not the economy, is that the luck of the draw here for him?
Yes, that is John McCain's turf, although we know that the economy is going to come up in that debate. But I think at the end of the day, John McCain is counting on the fact that swing voters are going to look at John McCain, look at Barack Obama, and decide that it's too risky to go with the new guy who's inexperienced. And Barack Obama is trying to reassure people that it's not so risky.
Or that the other case is even riskier.
Exactly.
John Harwood of the New York Times and CNBC. Thanks, John.